What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode number 7 of the Max Manus Pod. Before we get started, big time shout out to Israel Baseball for helping set up today's episode. They reached out to me. They wanted to make this happen. There's a special announcement coming with Dean in the middle that you're going to have to listen for that is going to be pretty fun. But today's guest is Dean Kremer, someone that I've wanted on the pod for a long time. I've never actually met him directly. This was my first time really interacting with him, but we know a whole bunch of mutual people, and everybody that I've ever heard talk about Dean has had nothing but the best things to say. And after having chatted with him for about 40 minutes, I can confirm it's the same on my end, that Dean is the absolute man. Really went into depth on a whole lot of things about his development with the Orioles, being traded over from the Dodgers for Manny Machado, his pitching development, different people in the Orioles organization that helped him out. And then we talked a whole lot about his Jewish identity, Israeli identity, like pitching in the World Baseball Classic in 2023 and in 2017. Dean was awesome, been wanting to make it happen for a long time. So again, big time shout out to the good folks at Israel Baseball who reached out to me and helped out to make this happen. I want to ask you guys, leave some comments. Let me know what you want in the coming episodes. I think I've been thinking about starting to run some more solo episodes to kind of give you guys my take on current ongoing events throughout baseball, whether it's with the Yankees specifically, the league as a whole, sports media stuff at John Boy Media. Would truly love to get your guys' take on the type of content you want to see coming from this podcast, especially as we get into the summer and, baseball gets really, really, really fun. But absolutely still want to have more and more guests on in the future, thinking about getting maybe some faces from the John Boy Media office, maybe some other ex-players, people from around baseball, maybe some more media types. Obviously, we had Passan on the last episode, and the response to that was great. So thank you to all of you guys who listened. But this was a fun one. So yeah, please, anyways, leave any comments down below, YouTube, Twitter, wherever it is that you want to reach me. I will be truly scrolling through those and taking any suggestions into account, because I'm trying to map out the future of what I want the next few episodes to look like throughout this season. So really, thank you guys all so much for listening. And without further ado, let's get into the interview with Dean Kremer. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Max Manus podcast. We've got another big leaguer joining us today, our third one on the show. Very, very exciting. And this is someone that, even though he plays in my division, he is someone who, since the moment he debuted, I've had a huge rooting interest in and always been a fan of this guy for obvious reasons that we will get into a little bit later. But for now, very, very excited and very grateful that he took the time to join the show. Dean Kremer, what's going on, man?
Hey, Max, how's it going?
Not too bad, I guess. We're in the heat of the baseball season right now. All-Star break's coming up, definitely the part of the season where things can get a little bit intense. So I guess, where are you at right now?
Yeah, we're in Atlanta. We got an off day today. Big series against them this weekend, and then one more week at home before the All-Star break. So I'm sure a lot of guys are looking forward to that few days off and kind of resetting and attacking the second half as best we can.
Yeah, I don't blame you that. Especially, I feel like when it heats up, there's probably that, oh my God, when you're playing 97, 98 degree heat day games, I feel like it just ends up being all right, All-Star break, finally, we made it.
Yeah, the last 2-ish weeks have been kind of rough. Tampa was scorching. New York after that was really hot, and then we went home and it was damn near 100 degrees for the whole homestand.
Yeah, Tampa did a thing. I think they're the stretch of their schedule just started where, since they moved to Steinbrenner Field and it doesn't have the roof and it's just so hot to play there in the summer, that they had to move all of their home games from the summer, and they have 10 home games in a 2.5 month span, and they're just on the road all summer. So I guess we'll see how that goes. But if what you're saying is accurate, it sounds like it was a schwitz down there.
Yeah, it's definitely the sweatiest I've been.
I believe it. Pitched well there, though, so hey, didn't phase you much. All right, so I guess the way we usually like to start things here is kind of just having people give us their baseball origin story, because people know Dean Kremer, they know Proud Jew, they know Orioles pitcher, kind of been in the league for a little while now, but I'm sure there's so many parts of your story that you don't get to share as much, but that you see as really integral parts of how you got to where you are. So I guess, take us back, 20 however many years to the early days. Why do you love baseball?
So I got into baseball in a kind of happenstance way. So when I was 4 or 5, that age where you kind of start playing sports, my dad wanted to be anywhere but the tennis courts. So
okay.
happened to live 2 blocks from a little league and signed up for that, and kind of just fell in love with it then. And it only progressed as I continued to get older. I didn't really get good at baseball or even having professional aspirations until maybe the end of high school. Junior college was really when I started to kind of get significantly better quickly, and kind of go from there. But yeah, 2 years at a junior college and a year in Vegas at a Division I, and then start my pro career. But it's been quite the journey.
Was it always pitching for you? Like, what was the moment that you were like that you picked up a baseball and threw it from a mound, and you were like, "Whoa, this is pretty cool."
No, actually, I went to junior college as a two-way. I had a decent arm, solid arm action, but didn't really have any velocity. When I was in high school, I was maybe 83, 84 my senior year, and I didn't pitch a ton. I played the outfield. Was an okay hitter, not much pop. So that's what the recruiting aspect of that wasn't was very good. But 2 weeks into me being at junior college, my redshirt year, they were like, "Yeah, you're probably not going to hit at this level. So go to the bullpen." And
Appreciate the honesty.
Yeah, that's kind of when I became a pitcher, and they put me through a pretty progressive weighted ball program or throwing program my first year, and gained probably like 5 or 6 miles an hour. So I was touching 90 regularly during the spring of that year. So it's been a fun journey.
Yeah, for sure. Were there certain pitchers that you always tried to model your game after?
I wouldn't say any. I can't think of anybody specifically that I would model my game after. I just my goal is to be able to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I guess it was fun. We had Jeff Passan on last week, and he was talking about how every pitcher now in the big leagues is just such a nerd when it comes to knowing their pitch shapes and repertoires and profiles and all these different things. That must have been so different when you got started compared to, like, not just in terms of the resources that are available to you, but 10 years ago, I feel like nobody had anything remotely resembling what we have right now in the big leagues.
Oh, definitely. Pitching has taken quite a few strides forward over the last. So is hitting. The game in general when it comes to analytics and really getting to understand yourself and what makes you good or what areas you can get better. Baseball has taken a significant leap forward in kind of personalizing the game. It's not necessarily throw balls at the bottom of the zone and hope they hit it on the ground anymore. Or get ahead with your fastball all the time. You have to be able to mix and match and kind of understand what you do well and what makes you good.
How have you tinkered in that regard? Were there things like over the years, maybe when you changed organizations, that the Orioles changed a little bit in you?
Actually, the Dodgers, when I first got drafted, they did and I'm sure still do quite a good job grooming and helping you understand yourself and helping you understand the direction that you need to go. In the 2 years that I was there, I got significantly better. And then I came over to the Orioles when they were still a little bit behind before Elias and company had taken over. And since they've the analytics department and all of that, the nerdy stuff has taken some strides forward and helped us kind of mold ourselves.
Yeah, we love the nerdy stuff on this program, so we don't have to shy away from that over here. Is it as simple as like pitch grips? Have they introduced new pitches to your repertoire, like on a very practical level? What have the changes you looked like when you look at the Dean Kremer of when did you get drafted? What was that, like 2016 or so?
Yeah, 2016. Funny thing is, if I ever need to be humbled or remember where I came from or how long or how far I've come. I'll watch my first and second year in pro ball and look how much different my throw was, just my throw in general and how I pitched, and I was like, wow, I was terrible.
So what changed?
Well, coming out of college, I thought I was like a two-seam slider guy, and I'm not. I'm not that guy. And 2 years into being into pro ball, I was pretty much exclusively a four-seam curveball guy until 2020 when I debuted. I added that cutter or the cutter slider thing, and kind of been rocking with those since. But curveball has definitely taken a couple steps forward from when I debuted. It's a little bit harder, a little bit smaller, a little more consistent. The cutter slider thing's about the same. The four seam's about the same, but I've added a changeup and a two seamer in 22, and then since then, kind of continued to expand and continue to like tinker. I mean, we're always tinkering, whether it's like a little bit in grips or a little bit in approach, or that's how you kind of stay unpredictable in this league and navigate your way. We've got Charlie Morton. He's been pitching the big leagues for 16 years. He's just shy of 17, or he's right at 17 years. And I mean, he's a beauty to have in the clubhouse, especially when you want to talk about trying to fool guys for a long time.
Yeah, Charlie Morton is such a great example in that regard, because he's kind of like the example everyone uses of, he was in the big leagues for a while, kind of, like fine enough career, but, nothing too notable. And then, he's a little bit older, gets to Houston, they figure everything out for him, and then he keeps bouncing between all these like smart pitching organizations. And it's interesting because I feel like for so long, the stereotype probably was that older players are like very anti all that stuff. Like the older players don't want the front office guy with the iPad coming up to them and saying, oh, if you tweak your grip on your curveball a little bit here. But it's so interesting that I feel like baseball's gotten to a point now where all the players, I think, and especially pitchers, kind of realize, like, if you're not listening to what those guys have to say, like, you got to see the value in both, right? That there's if you want to call it front office analytics, however you want to characterize it, and then kind of the grizzly pitcher, the Charlie Morton, who's been around the block a little bit. Like when you meld those two forms of like wisdom a little bit, that's almost like the secret sauce, I would think.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot to that. But at the same time, I think you have to know yourself, and a lot of what I've come across has been through trial and error, like trying out grips, trying out approach, trying out different pitches to different locations, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work, and you kind of have to figure it out for yourself. The biggest thing that I remind myself, and I remind other people who ask, is nobody throws that ball for you. So the front office or pitching coaches or whoever can tell you whatever you might want to hear, but at the same time, like, you have to take ownership of your career and what works for you. And sometimes you have to be a little bit more stubborn about it.
Yeah, when you talk about always having to be like innovative and tweaking things when you're a pitcher, how much of that is something that in season is easy to make changes between start to start? Hey, I'm going to change this a little bit with my four seam or grip, with my release point, whatever it is. Or is that something more so that during the off season, that's kind of a chance to sit down and be like, all right, we have a few months. Let's map out how we want to change things this year.
It depends on what you're tinkering with. So if it's like small adjustments where it's like moving your fingers just a smidge or things like that, those are pretty simple to do during the season. But if it's like throwing a completely new pitch or something of that nature, that's more of like an off-season project, just because there's always injury risk for adding new pitches or other issues may arise because you're not used to doing that same movement or whatever.
Yeah, I hear it. That was awesome. Our audience like loves the pitching nerd stuff, so that's gonna play really well. I want to talk to you about being traded and being in like a pretty high profile trade when you were pretty young. That's something that we hear a lot. Like I feel like the example that people use a lot is like the Mookie Betts trade with Alex Verdugo. That people are always like, man, like that's a tough position to be in when you're like a prospect, kind of just trying to find your footing, and you don't, like you want to prove to yourself that you have something to live up to, but in the eyes of the public, kind of, all prospects are just prospects until there's something else. But when you get traded for a big name, like you got traded for Manny Machado, like that's when he was like, not that he's not still a dude, but when he was like really like a dude in the league.
Right.
Was that the type of thing that was difficult for you as like, like this is going to change the way people look at me. This is something I have to wear. Or I guess, how did you kind of just like put the blinders on? Like, what was your approach to that?
No, it was definitely interesting. It was more of a why me? I wasn't a highly touted prospect. I didn't think I was somebody that would be sought after for a trade like that. I still think of it as like a happy accident. Like they picked me up and they went through we went through a regime change and still here. So kind of a happy accident, but it was cool. It's really cool to say that you were a part of something like that. But it went from one organization that I had all my friends to an organization where I didn't really know anybody. Fortunately, I got traded over with 3 other guys that I was fairly close with. So that transition wasn't as bad as you might think. But it was interesting to say the least.
Had you heard any whispers in the days coming up to like, hey, they're working on something, you might be involved, or did you just get a phone call and you were like, all right, I'm an Oriole now?
So it was kind of like a week and a half process that I was blind to for the most part. So I get called up July 1st or something, 2018. I pitched on the 5th for Tulsa. That was my AA debut. And then throughout the first half, they had been talking about doing a skip start, which is very common in the minor leagues, just to give guys a break or to monitor innings or whatnot. But I got the day of my start, they're like, hey, we're going to push you back. We're going to give you an extra, 3 days or something like that, and you'll start this day. And I was like, okay, it's probably my skip start. They were talking about doing this the whole first half. It is what it is. I got no problem with it. Then the next time on my start day, they pushed me back again. And I was like, okay, well, what the hell did I do? What's going on here? And after the first time, had some buddies in the clubhouse who were like, "Oh, you're getting traded. I was like, the deadline's not till the end of the month. Like, we're still pretty far away from this. So I don't think that's happening whatsoever. And then the third time on my third potential start day, it was like an hour before the game. And I was still in street clothes because I was like, I'm not. They're gonna find some way to push me back again. So whatever. And so I get a phone call an hour or so before first pitch, and they're like, "Yeah, you've been traded to the Orioles, and good luck." Pretty much.
Wow, pretty straight to the point.
No, I mean,
I got you.
They're like. We appreciate everything, and
Sure.
This is a part of the business, and good luck with the Orioles. And then you get a call from the other organization, and they kind of like, this is your travel, this is where you're going to be, this is like welcome, and kind of get going from there.
That's funny. That's a great story. You were like, something's not up here. I know they push guys a little bit normally, but something.
Well, I was so. 2 of us was actually it was a 5-person trade. There was 4 of us that were young, and then there was one guy who was a little bit older who had a little bit of service time. I think they ended up getting rid of him before the end of the year. but for the most part, it was us four prospects. Two of us were pitchers, two of us were position players, and the other one was a reliever, Zach Pop.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't. I guess because my schedule was a little bit more controllable, they took advantage of it.
Yeah, sure. It's got to be like somewhat rewarding because you're talking about like you weren't this, super big name prospect. Like you weren't necessarily expecting to be traded, but it's got to be pretty cool then to be like, oh, wow, like another organization sees something in me that they went out of their way to be like, we want Dean Kremer in this trade.
Yeah, definitely reassuring for the confidence. But yeah, again, it was very unexpected. Definitely didn't think I'd be one of those people.
I gotcha. So fast forward 2 years, you're debuting in the big leagues. I remember it very well because I graduated high school in June of 2020, like during COVID. And then I went to Israel to Yeshiva for a couple of years to study there. And I remember being in quarantine like a couple days after I'd landed, watching Dean Kremer make his big league debut in a completely empty Camden Yards, shutting down the Yankees. So what was that experience like? Because you're probably thinking, man, like, been working towards getting to the big leagues for so long. The big league debut is this thing that's so hyped up. Hopefully my whole family's going to be there. And then you're pitching in front of like the most bizarre circumstances that we've ever seen in MLB.
Right. So when you picture your debut, when you're first getting into the minor leagues, yeah, you think about some of the things that you said, having your family in attendance, having a stadium full of people and all that. But I mean, once we got to the COVID season, we realized like that's not, if debut or not, like that's not happening. But it was, I'd say 2020 was probably the easiest transition into the big leagues that you could probably ask for. There was no media in the clubhouse. There was no fans yelling at you. It was pretty much like you were playing a game in front of nobody, and it was like an inter squad in college or in just a fun competition. I mean, I didn't sleep the night before at all. Fortunately, it was a day game. Yeah, I got a call it was like 10:30 or 11 the night before from Brandon Hyde and Mike Elias, and I'm like, hey, you want to pitch for us tomorrow? Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to. So drove over from Bowie. That was our alternate site, which is about 40 minutes down the road from Baltimore. The morning of, and kind of, yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience.
Did it make it easier to like manage the nerves, I guess? When you're facing the Yankees in your big league debut, that's like, it's go time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, Yankees, Dodgers. I mean, you put any lineup out there for your debut, and you're still the wheels are spinning, regardless of who's in that box. But it was a fun introduction in the big leagues, and I really do think it was one of the easier transitions because there was nothing but baseball that you had to focus on. There was no outside noise, no anything of that nature. Because when we came back in 2021, I didn't have a good year by any means, and that was a little bit more like eye-opening, having stadium full of people and everybody's yelling, and yeah, it's pretty easy to get distracted.
The first time you pitched with actual people in the stands must have been like, oh, last year was kind of nice.
yeah, it was a lot more quiet, and you can think to yourself.
I believe it. I want to ask specifically, this is like a very unique Orioles thing. You had to pitch in a home ballpark that the dimensions changed like 3 times in 3 years. What was that like to go through as a pitcher? Where it's like, well, can you adjust anything at all pitch-wise for that? Is that the type of thing that changes your philosophy at all? Or is it just like, listen, man, the wall's going to be wherever the wall's going to be, and, I got to go out there and do my thing?
So before they moved it back, while it was still rather shallow, I mean, our park was probably one of the best places to hit, and I still think it is one of the better places to hit in the big leagues. I know a lot of guys come into town and they're like, "Oh, yes, I love hitting at Camden Yards. I love hitting there." So in terms of approach, it's like really being mindful of where you're throwing balls to right-handed hitters. And then when they moved the wall back, it became like, hey, if you're behind in count, you can let one rip right down the middle, and if they get it, they get it. If not, you got to hit it pretty far to get it out of there. And now that they moved it back in a little bit, I think it's evened out quite a bit.
Was there any good like banter in the clubhouse when they made each of those decisions? That as soon as they move it back, the pitchers are like, yes, and then they move it back in, and like Ryan Mountcastle and all those righty hitters are like, finally. There was a crazy stat. I think it was like Mountcastle lost like 15 homers or something one year from when they moved it back. He must have been like, thank God.
Yeah, I think that was in 22 or 23. He was pretty. Him and the rest of the right-handed hitters were pretty upset that they moved it back. But once they brought it back in, we all kind of like, this is fair. This is even.
Awesome. So let's get into some Israel stuff a little bit. That's obviously something that's super important to both of our identities. Let's start with the WBC 2023. You go out there, take the ball, game 1 against Nicaragua. That game, I always say, it evoked emotions in me that I consider myself a huge baseball fan. For better or worse, I watch every single Yankees game every single night with my heart on the line, like it's the only thing that matters.
Good
when
for
I was
you.
watching,
Good for
whether
you.
Whether that's advisable or not is a different story, but it's kind of what I've picked for myself. So here we are. But when I was watching those Team Israel games, it evokes something in you that you really cannot like replicate in any other form of baseball. You're rooting for something that's just so much bigger. So I guess take me through like the process of taking the mound for a WBC game versus an Orioles game. Is your mindset the same? Is there a different level of adrenaline? Just like, what was that like for you?
It was definitely different than any regular season game that I've thrown. I got to participate in the one in 2017, and prior to that, I had played for the national team for a few summers in European tournaments. And every time I've gotten the chance to put on the uniform, it's been so much fun. Win, lose, or draw, like I've had such a good time, and being surrounded by a bunch of guys that are very similar to me. It is. Anybody that's asked me like, hey, should I play in the WBC? Like, what are your thoughts about it? Regardless of the country that they want to play for, do it. It is so much fun. You play for pride. It's like a playoff game, but a little more relaxed, but just as intense, if that makes sense. It is quite a joy of a tournament. Like it's so much fun.
So you said that you would tell other people to do it. Is there any news you want to break for the people about 2026?
Yeah, I'd love to. As of right now, we're planning to play in 2026. I'll be one of the guys on Team Israel.
Awesome, man. You got to start recruiting now. We got to go get like Bregman. We got to build a squad over here. We can't, listen. I know DR and Puerto Rico and all these teams, so we need to make a name for ourselves.
Agreed. And I think this go around, I think we're going to see a few new faces and hopefully with some big league tenure. A lot of it has to do with timing and career and, a bunch of outside noise, but hopefully we have some new faces and kind of get the right people in there.
Yeah, man, I really hope so. You talked about kind of just like that experience of being surrounded by all these guys that are like a little bit more similar to you. Is there like a sense of like camaraderie among all the like Jewish big leaguers? Like, are those like your guys that you're going out of your way to talk to when you see, the A's are coming through town. I'm going to catch up with Zach Geloff, Matt Murdvis, Bregman, whoever it is.
Yeah, I've definitely built relationships with some of those guys like Zach and Matt. Both of those guys. Every time we're in the same city, we make sure we say hi to each other, talk out on the field or whatnot. Haven't gotten to build the relationship with Breggy or Freed yet, but I know they're both in the division now, and Max is going to be Max is going to be in the division for quite a while. So I look forward to building a relationship with him and chatting him up every time we go to New York or every time they come to us.
Awesome. Can you talk a little bit about just you're the first Israeli drafted by an MLB team? That's got to be something that, like, if that was me, that would just be like anytime I need a fun fact at a bar or something like that, anytime you need a fun fact to drop wherever it is, like, that's just got to be such a cool thing that you get to wear really as a badge of pride.
Yeah, like you said, a badge of pride and an honor to be a quote unquote flag bearer of sorts.
Yeah, for sure.
But definitely an honor to be the first of anything and to be the first and represent a country that I have a lot of pride for is definitely something special.
Do you have any theories? This is something we've delved into with a couple other guests on the podcast. Any theories as to why people talk about baseball as being like such a Jewish sport and like why it is that Jews are drawn to baseball?
I don't know that I've had that experience. The two biggest markets being LA and New York both have quite a high Jewish population, so maybe there's a rhyme or a reason there.
I don't know. Maybe it's my theory that I'm just running with that I'm trying to put on everyone else.
Maybe it's because we are the more average looking of the of the four sports. You know, basketball guys are really tall, and NFL guys are pretty well put together, and hockey guys the same thing, and or baseball is the most unassuming of the of the sports. Like, wow, they're regular people too. Maybe I had a chance, you know.
Unassuming. I like that.
Yeah.
My theory that I've always had is that I think, you know, Judaism, for as far back as you want to go, it's always about just like arguing over like this one letter in the Gemara and what does this mean and what does that mean, and that's like fast forward all these years, and you know, when we wanted to add like instant replay and the pitch clock and all those things, it was like, oh my God, we can't change tradition. Tradition's what baseball is all about. So I think there's something to like the tradition and the strategy and the history that like that's all we've ever argued over since the beginning of time. So I think that lends itself to baseball. That's my
you might be right in that aspect as well.
I want to ask, I read somewhere, I think it was on your Wikipedia, that you said in the past that, like Sandy Koufax, you wouldn't want to pitch on Yom Kippur. We have a few Jews, we have a few members of the tribe in the office, and I remember there was one day that we were talking about Sandy Koufax just like separately in like the realm of just baseball pitchers in the office, and me and my like all my Jewish coworkers were like, oh yeah, he didn't pitch on Yom Kippur, and all of our coworkers were like, what? And we all looked at each other, we were like, is that not a story that every single baseball fan knows? Like, I feel like from the moment that I first picked up a baseball, that was like drilled into my head is like, Sandy Koufax didn't pitch on Yom Kippur,
and neither should you.
Exactly. So is it Jewish guilt that led you to that?
Maybe partially, but
sure.
You know, it's something that I think is the right thing to do in our culture. That's the day where you're not supposed to do anything. It's the Day of Atonement, so just kind of try to lay low that day.
Yeah, fair enough. Straightforward. I want to ask you about, like, I guess post October 7th. That was something that was obviously like, you know, I don't even have to say, like, jarring doesn't do it justice. Kind of just like, I feel like a day that kind of everything like paused a little bit for every Jew in the world. I know you guys were in the middle of the playoffs, sure. So that must have been just like I can't even imagine what those few days must have been like in your head. I guess in the aftermath of that, and, you know, to say Israel's been in the news in the past 2 years, I think would be a bit of an understatement. So I guess your Jewish identity, your Israeli identity, is that the type of thing that you've had ever talked about with players in the past, with teammates, with other guys around the league, people around the organization? Is it the type of thing that maybe now that it's been a little bit more, I guess if you want to say relevant in the last couple of years, has that changed things at all?
From a day-to-day basis, I don't know that much has changed. I have had plenty of teammates and guys in the organization ask me if my family's okay, ask me if everything's okay at home, which I'm very grateful for. That means they're aware, they understand what we might be going through. At the same time, they're also asking, like, what's going on. And I try to fill them in as best I can. But yeah, right after October 7th, I mean, we were in the playoffs at that point, and the world kind of just turned upside down on me and my family and everyone, or a lot of people that I know for a few days. But it was a tough 2 weeks from then. Even with the playoffs going on, it was one of the only things that I was kind of thinking about, and I was kind of glued to my phone and watching the Israeli news and kind of understanding what was going on and making sure all my family was okay. And yeah, it was a tough 2 weeks.
Yeah, I feel like for a lot of people, it was kind of a moment that, like, everything I thought was so important in my life beforehand kind of just immediately went on pause. Like, the Yankees kind of stunk that year. And that was, like, I remember, like, after October 7th, having the thought of, like, thank God the Yankees aren't in the playoffs right now, because that would be way too much for me to deal with if we had both of these going on at once. So, yeah, I feel like everybody kind of had that experience of, like, the rest of life is almost, I don't want to say on pause, but it kind of puts everything to perspective. But that's got to be so difficult when it's like October's go time in baseball. Like, if you're in the playoffs, it's like you kind of got to block out everything else. But at the same time, it's like it feels so inappropriate to block out everything else. Like this feels like the time to be focusing on everything else.
Right. Yeah, like you said, it felt like it was the only thing that was important at that time, and for the foreseeable future of getting the hostages home and making sure everybody was okay. It was quite tough.
Yeah, well, we'll finish up on a more positive note. I hope you know that there was something to me, like, I thought the coolest, like, one of the things that really gave me a lot of strength in the weeks and months and even up to this day after that was seeing so many people that really were not afraid to wear their Judaism, wear their pride on their sleeve. You're rocking the Magen David every time you go out there to pitch. And I think, I know that was something that you had done even beforehand, but I feel like, we had Harrison Bader on the podcast a month or two ago, and he was talking about how he decided to start wearing a Magen David on his belt because he's Jewish on his dad's side and has, like, a whole lot of Jewish friends and family. And I think it was the kind of thing that made a lot of people, I feel like everybody, whatever level they were at, as far as, like, this is how proud I am of my Judaism and this is how vocal I want to be about it. I feel like everybody kind of took a step up because it was like, hey, this is a time to be out there. So I hope you know that it gave a lot of strength to everybody who was watching you and was saying, like, wow, even with everything crazy going on right now, there's a lot of stereotypes, there's a lot of negativity around the Jewish world and around Israel right now, but it makes it all the more stronger and all the more impressive when people like you go out there and aren't afraid to kind of proudly wear that on their sleeve.
No, that was something that I would, I wear, it's on me always. And I've been wearing it for, I don't know, as long as I can remember. But that day specifically, that game against the Rangers, that I pitched in the playoffs, whether I was mentally there or not, or whether I could focus on the game or not, or anything like that, I felt like it was the right thing to do. Even to go out there and put the terrible performance that I had put out there, but just to have the broadcast and just to have the people, just to get the information out there, and kind of make people aware, I think was more important to me.
Yeah, I hear it, man. I think it's going to lead to some pretty cool things in the WBC in 2026. I think it's going to lead to, like we said, hopefully a lot more guys getting involved, a lot more guys, like, really proudly showing out, because I feel like in past years we're glad to take anybody who wants to come play for Team Israel, but you could always tell there are some guys that are really pumped to be there, and there are some guys that are like, hey man, I want to be in the WBC. So I think that moving forward we'll have some guys who are like really, really pumped to be on there and really proud to, like I said, kind of be very out there with their Judaism and wear it on their sleeve. So I think that's one silver lining of how crazy the past couple of years have been, is that I think that's going to be a really fun tournament in that sense. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you out there for it.
Me too. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think we're going to put together a decent team.
Awesome.
One that'll compete in this division.
Yeah, exactly. We got, man, it's a gauntlet. I don't know who arranged those brackets, but all right. Awesome. Dean, this is the absolute best. I really, really appreciate you taking the time. Go get him out there in Atlanta, and we'll see you in Miami in 8 months now. Crazy. It's catching up on us.
Yeah, it's going to come quick. I appreciate the time, Max. Always.
All right. Awesome. Thanks everybody for listening.